Well, Friday, before the reunion, I was cutting the grass about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 2:30, and I went by my freeze-proof farm pump across the street near the cottage, and this handle, which will hit a piece of fence if it's leaning over, but the spigot, we have a 2-hose connector at the bottom of that farm faucet, and this hit one of them. You can see what it got whacked a little bit, and that's a steel rod. So you can picture this thing sitting in the ground straight up. We had one of these on it. It was turned like that. We had a hose coming this way and a hose going that way. It was sitting like that. And that's the way it was in the ground. And I'm coming from this direction in a lawnmower, and the handle that raises the mower deck hit that hose right below where it attaches, sheared it off clean as a whistle. And you still had the nut here that had attached it completely, and the thing that went inside the hose, and the hose was just gone. But when it got hit, I was coming from this direction. When it got hit, it bent back. It caught that, and that was enough to bend this thing over. Now, to protect yourself from that, you put concrete around the base. And this had concrete around the base, solid, all the way to about here. So when I hit it, if I'd hit it going the other direction, it wouldn't have bent it and broke the pipe, because it wasn't in concrete. But the concrete was laid up to just right here. There was no concrete on this side. So when I hit that, there's nothing but that much soil, and it just bent over. I'll show you the difference between the two. See, this one's buried about the same distance in the ground, and it's surrounded by concrete, so it's really rigid and hard. And that way, if you hit it, it would bend maybe from there up to here, but it wouldn't break it off under the ground. Now that's the concrete pad laid around the pipe, and it's upside down. But see how the pipe was right there? So when the pipe was hit going that direction, there was nothing to support it. But if it was the other way, that concrete would have been it above ground, but it wouldn't have broke the pipe off under the ground. And when this guy worked on this 20-some years ago or more, they just didn't pour enough concrete around the pipe. All this concrete out here isn't doing you any good. It needed to be there. Now, folks, I've cut this grass, good Lord, I don't know, 500 times. And I've come around that tree 500 times. And I've gone by that freezer-proof faucet 500, well, maybe, well, 400 or 500 times. Never hit it. Well, Friday afternoon, 2:30, whatever, I hit it. That's a little plastic pot that they put in a pipe that allowed you to cut it off with a valve. The valve's been around 20-some years. That's been full of dirt for all that time. You couldn't turn that vise with a pipe wrench that was 20 feet long. And so anyway, the water just started bubbling up because the pipe broke at the ground. Well, it's like you had children. They always got sick at 3 o'clock on Friday. They never got sick on Monday morning when you could call the doctor and make an appointment. It's always Friday afternoon, about 5 minutes before the doctor's office closed. Well, here we said at about 2:30 on Friday, we got a reunion, the 41st or 43rd. I have to check. We were arguing about that this weekend. But it's at least 41 years of reunions. And I've got no water for this cottage. I've cut the water off to that cottage, and they had guests down. I cut the water off to the other cottage because this well supplies all 3 lines, but all the water's running into this ground under here, and had floated that up out of a big piece of PVC pipe that you could reach down in and cut the valve off if the valve was nice and new and shiny. And when I reached down into that water, it went above my elbow. I'll lift this board up. We did this so nobody would fall in the hole. So anyway, the water's coming up. We know it's got to be at least 6-8 inches deep, but we had to get to the valve, and under the valve we thought the faucet pump part was here. That's been backfilled a little bit, and it was connected there with a valve about right there. And all the water, we thought it was broken out here or broken at the bottom of that valve. but it broke where it attached to the pipe. So I asked a friend of mine if he had a valve tool that would turn that thing off. And you can see the piece down in the bottom we cut off to put that cap on. And they didn't have one, so he came over here, and I'm 72 and he's probably 60, 65 range. And he said, well, let's see what you got. And I'd already started to dig this out to try to maybe get a wrench on the valve stem knob, but it's 20 some inches under the ground, so you had to have a big path to be able to turn that with a wrench. And he said, why don't we just dig the thing up and find out where it's broke? And I said, well, if I can get to the pipe where the water's coming out, I can just cap it. So it took a little while, because this is some hard bloody soil. You know, I tell you about this soil. Well, I ain't lying to you folks. This is hard digging. You can see there's almost no topsoil. It's all clay. Well, and this is full of water. So we cut the pump off, and then we dipped all this water out, and all the lines drained back in the hole. We dipped all that out, put it out there in that ditch, and eventually we got down to the pipe and found it, cleaned out underneath it, cleaned the pipe up with the paper towels and everything, and put the two chemicals, one that just cleans the thing up, and the other one is the adhesive on the PCV. Put it on there and put a 3/4 cap on it, and I could turn the well on. Everybody was watering. We could have our reunion. But what a mess. And we did finish this about 4:20, 4:30 range. And then I got a board, covered it. This is all the stuff that come out the hole. That's the soil we've got. You tell me even how this grass grows. Some nasty stuff, folks. And I cut the grass and we had a reunion. And now I'm telling you, and now I got to get another pump and put it in there, concrete it in right like it ought to be, and we'll have water again. At least up on this end. Here's the bottom of a freeze-proof faucet pump. And that hole, see how clean this is? That hole is where the water comes out. When you turn this, pull that knob all the way up, a cartridge slides up here and blocks that hole, and all the water comes out the faucet end, out the spigot. When you shut it off, this cartridge comes down below here, and all the water in that pipe drains out this hole. And see how clean this is? And this has been in the ground for 20 some years. And you can't hardly see it, but down in there you can see the edge of the cartridge. And you can buy those cartridges. But this, you'd never get this apart, more than likely. It's been in there too long. And this is two different kinds of metal. So it's time for a couple $100 for a new one. But that's how these work. And it comes out that hole, and see how it's been leaking. Every time you shut it off, the water in that pipe comes out that hole. And that's, if I flip this over, you will see that's what it would look if it didn't have water weeping out that hole all the time. Don't want to get this thing too long, but that's what it is. And that piece of PVC pipe was fitting over that valve like that, and it was notched to go on each side of the valve. And you could reach down there, but see, it's the length of my arm to get to it. And this was a little above grade level. And that's just to be able to plug this up. This won't freeze, and you could cut it off if you had to.